the virgin birth. I believe in the saints' communion and in your holy church. I believe in the resurrection when Jesus comes again. For I believe in the name of Jesus. Come on! I believe in God our Father. I believe in Christ the Son. I believe in the Holy Spirit. Our God is three in one. I believe in the resurrection, that we will rise again. For I believe in the name of Jesus. I believe in God our Father. I believe in Christ the Son. I believe in the Holy Spirit. Our God is three in one. I believe in the resurrection, that we will rise again. For I believe in the name of Jesus. For I believe in the name of Jesus. Praise you, Lord. Worship you, Jesus. You were the Word at the beginning, one with God the Lord Most High. Your hidden glory in creation, now revealed in you, our Christ. What a beautiful name it is. What a beautiful name it is. The name of Jesus Christ, my King. What a beautiful name it is. Nothing compares to this. What a beautiful name it is. The name of Jesus. You didn't want heaven without us. So Jesus, you brought heaven down. My sin was great, your love was greater. What could separate us now? What a wonderful name it is. What a wonderful name it is. The name of Jesus Christ, my King. What a wonderful name it is. Nothing compares to this. What a wonderful name it is. The name of Jesus. Death could not hold you. The veil tore before you. You silenced the boast of sin and grave. The heavens are roaring the praise of your glory. For you are raised to life again. You have no rival. You have no equal. Now and forever, God, you reign. Yours is the kingdom His love for me. Oh, His love for me. Who the Son sets free, oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. Free at last, He has ransomed me. His grace runs deep. While I was a slave to sin, Jesus died for me. Yes, He died for me. Who the Son sets free, oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. In my Father's house, there's a place for me. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. I am who you say I am. Who the Son sets free, oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. In my Father's house, there's a place for me. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. In my Father's house, there's a place for me. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am.
Council, yeah, and I'll get the time for you. Yeah. All right. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Northcote Baptist. It's great that we can have an event like this. We're pretty excited to hear from the candidates we've got up on stage here. So I guess, first of all, if this is your first time at Northcote Baptist, a welcome to you. It's great that you're here. If Northcote Baptist is your home or you're a regular attender here, welcome back. It's been a little while. Just a couple of housekeeping things before we get started. First of all, toilets. If you head through these doors here, head to the right, there's a couple of toilet signs, and down the corridor, there's a male and female toilet out there. In the event of emergency, we all just head through these doors and out into the car park. And finally, I just wanted to say, a massive thank you to the five of you up on stage for, you giving up your time tonight to be here. We're all really excited to hear some of your views and hear some of your thoughts on different things. So, I just want to say a massive thank you. And to the rest of us, as I say, they've given up their time, so let's respect that. No matter what end of the political spectrum you're on, let's respect that they've given up their time tonight and keep it nice and quiet from the audience. I'm just going to hand it over to my dad, Dean, here. So he's going to be hosting the night. So get you on up.
Yeah, well done, Jordan. Oh, look, I'm really pleased to be able to help out with the questions tonight, and host sounds like a big responsibility. I don't think you will need any hosting whatsoever, but we've got some really neat questions, so thank you very much for those that have submitted them, and some more have also come in tonight, and we'll try and get as much as we can in. We've got 2 hours. We've also got a timer. We've got 2 timers. Jordan's got one and I've got one, and that's just to keep it short and snappy. I'll let you know how long you've got for each question. The way that we've built the program tonight is we'll give each of the candidates 3 minutes to introduce themselves and what they stand for and why they're passionate about the Birkenhead Northcote area. And then we've got some quick-fire questions to go bang, 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 and you're going to have a lot of fun with those answers, I'm sure. And if you're not, you're sure about it, you will be after you've had them. We've also got some pre-prepared questions that have been shared with each of the candidates just to try and tease out what some of their positions are on issues that we felt were important to this electorate. And thank you to many of you. You've given us some questions already, so I've got those. Where we've got time, we'll go through all of those, and I will include as many of those that have been handwritten out tonight. But this is our opportunity to learn what each of you stand for in this electorate. And as Jordan said, we respect the fact that you're standing. We love democracy. This is an awesome thing. And we love the fact that you've all got views that you're bringing to the table, that you've got positions, and we're here to learn about those so we can vote as informed New Zealanders. So thank you very much. So on that note, what I'm going to do is we'll just go from this side of the stage and around. So in no particular order, just the order that you're sitting in, and then we're going to mix it up. 3 minutes each. Can you tell us who you are and what you stand for and what you'll be bringing to this electorate if you happen to be elected as the representative? Start off with you, Bill.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Bill Dyatt, and it's really good to see you all here tonight. Thank you for coming, because like us, you guys really care about democracy in New Zealand, and that's why you've given up your evening to come along. And I also welcome my 4 other candidates here, and we're pleased to come and present to you. I'm Bill Dyatt, and I represent the New Conservative Party, and I'm asking for your party vote in this election, because with 5% of the party vote, that entitles New Conservative to 6 MPs in the House, and with that you get an independent party that will stand for moral values. So what is Conservative? Well, Conservative values are about 2 things. They're about number 1, freedom, and number 2, individual responsibility. So in terms of freedom, we're very similar to ACT in that we believe in a free market with minimal government interference. In other words, it's up to you to do what you want with your money. It's not up to the government to control where your money goes. So we're into less taxation and freedom of how you spend that money, and we support small businesses. But the other side of it, where we're a little bit different from ACT, which is a libertarian party, we're a conservative party. We believe in individual responsibility. So we promote good moral values because we believe that a moral people with an inner moral compass, require less government control. So there's less need for government laws and police and so on when people are, self-governing, if you like. So we promote good moral values. We're not we're not a Christian party as such. We're actually a party of many faiths. In fact, I've got a friend in my campaign team who's a Buddhist, and we welcome people from all faiths, but we all share common moral values, and we think that's important and relevant because what we believe shapes our values, and then it also shapes our political views. So we promote the family as the foundation for our society, which is mum, dad, and the kids, and we promote the sanctity of marriage because we believe that the family is very important to society and that children growing up in a good, stable home are obviously much less susceptible to the things that are a problem. Party vote New Conservative. For myself, I've been involved in Northcote, Birkenhead, Glenfield most of my adult life. I've raised a family in Glenfield and I lived in Beach Haven. I represented North Shore in basketball in the First Division NBL a long time ago. And whoever of these good people wins the election, I'm sure that whoever it will be very honoured to represent the people of Northcote because this is a diverse community with many different people, and it's a pleasure to be standing. Thank you.
Thank you. You set a good standard there, Bill. You finished 15 seconds ahead of your 3 minutes. That is awesome. 2 minutes and 45 you took. Hey, Dan, we'd love to hear from you. Thank you. It might be up there.
There we go. Good evening, all. Pleasure to be here this evening. Welcome to the Northcote Baptist Church. I'd just like to start out by acknowledging the great team here at the Northcote Baptist Church, Jordan, Dean, Nicola, and my special thoughts to Pastor Bruce, who I know has pneumonia at the moment. Hey, my name is Dan Bidwell, and I am the current National MP for this fantastic community of Northcote. And I would love your support, your candidate vote, and your party vote at this year's election. I'm deeply passionate about this place. Hillcrest is, by demographics, the perfect representation of New Zealand diversity. And I just love this place. But I think we're all passionate about this fantastic community. So passion alone is not enough to be a Member of Parliament. In my view, to be a great Member of Parliament, you've got to have the right experience, the right qualifications, you've got to reflect the right values of your community, and you've got to have that strong work ethic. With me, you've got all of that. I grew up in Auckland. I'm a high school dropout, a butcher, a Harvard graduate, an economist, former economist at the OECD. I've lived all over the world, and I've come back here to make a difference to this fantastic place. I am your sitting Member of Parliament. I know what it takes to get results here in Auckland Council, where Dean used to work, but also for us in Wellington. And I'm a strong, hard worker. I reflect the values of this community, the values of hard work, the values of private enterprise, the values of limited government, and the values of reward for effort. That's what I stand for. And I think, ladies and gentlemen, we have had the privilege over the last 40 years of having great members of Parliament, both for National and for Labour. And sometimes they're in government, sometimes they're in opposition. But all of those things that I've said, they have represented those values and that work ethic. So I think that that is extremely important for our fantastic community, and with me you've got a strong, well-qualified candidate. I just want to take a moment to talk about what I think are the two biggest issues facing our community. The first is around planning for growth and getting ahead of the growth in our community, whether it's transport, whether it's housing, whether it's wastewater infrastructure. We haven't kept pace with the level of growth in our city, and we need to get ahead of that. And I'm really happy to talk to you about what National's plans are in this area. The second is that COVID era. How are we going to get out of this mess? And I really want to talk to you about how National's views to encourage private enterprise, invest in the right kind of projects, and that is how we're going to get out of this mess. We've done it before in the global financial crisis. We will do it again. We've got fantastic depth. The former Air New Zealand CEO, myself, a whole range of candidates who have private sector business experience. We know how to get stuff done. I'd love your support this evening. Thank you.
They are doing very well tonight. Dan, you had 3 seconds on the clock. I couldn't have done better myself. Shannon, thank you very much. Love to hear from you too.
E te atua nāna nei ngā mea katoa, te whare e tu nei te marae e tākutu nei tēnā korua, ngā mate haere atu rā. Te hunga ora ki te hunga ora tātou mā tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Greetings everyone,
Kia
and
ora.
thank you very much to this wonderful parish for having us. Can I acknowledge, most of all at this point of the campaign team, all of our supporters from all sides of our campaigns who have been behind us and working hard in this hot sun over this weekend. So thanks very much for everyone's support. My name is Shannon Halbert and I'm standing to be your local MP here in Northcote. I'm deeply committed to this community and I'm passionate about both people and community and getting things done. I chair the local Beach Haven Birkdale Community Project and I love that particular work that I do. What I'm also proud of is the investment under Labour that we've put into our local schools, $60 million down at Northcote College to rebuild 20 classrooms and a gymnasium. Onepoto Primary, our most deprived pocket of the electorate, $19.5 million to rebuild a new school as a part of this development. But the most important thing as we come out of COVID-19 is that we work hard to get things done, to rebuild our economy, to put jobs in place. And that's where the anxiety sits for people at the moment across our electorate. But what's important when you rebuild an economy is that you ensure that you keep people at the centre, that we invest in our people, and that they're within our heart in the work that we're doing. So that's what I'm committed to as our local MP. I'm committed to this electorate. One of the reasons that I'm standing once again is that each election that I've worked hard at, we've closed that gap, and this election is very much a tight race. But we have 2 good people that will have to work together after October 17th, and it's our job over the next couple of weeks to convince why we would be your best local MP. One of the reasons particularly for me is that I will be a local MP that is a part of, fingers crossed, a Jacinda Ardern-led government. We want to continue the program of work that we've started over the past 3 years. We've already got a plan in place that is underway to rebuild our economy, and my job, in the absence of Labour MPs across the North Shore, will be to be our champion here in Northcote. I have the relationships both at a community level, as well as I will have the relationships with Wellington and with ministers, people that are able to make decisions and put resources into the places that we need. Here on the shore, people look at us a certain way, and that means in particular, in many cases, our most vulnerable are left behind. So as your local MP, I'll commit to supporting people, making sure that people stay at the heart of everything that we do, and most of all, bringing people together is what I stand for as a local MP.
Thank you. Shannon. Are you right there, Tim? Hey, welcome, and we look forward to hearing from you, Tim. Thank you very much. No,
Hello, testing.
That's it.
Good evening. Thank you for the invitation this evening. Tim Cronfeld's my name. My great-grandfather got to Auckland in 1890 from Apia, where he brought down a big family. He built the first building on Customs Street, the G. Cronfeld building, in 1905. The Cronfeld family is quite diverse. We've been We've had very we've been mainly an Auckland family, but we've had a few offshoots in Otago and various other places. My mother was born in Hāwea, and my father in Taihape. I've been brought up in the Horowhenua, and I went to Kapiti College, Massey University, and joined Jordan Salmon Smythe up here in 1986, where I bought a house on Onawa Road, and I've been here ever since. And this is my 5th election. I was a avid barker at the TV and barker at the radio, and until my partner, who's a Mackay. I think this land was originally the Mackay farm. So she's a real Northcoteite and Glenfield girl. And so you always come back to the shore for a little bit more, don't you? I'm passionate about where this country's headed. I've got 3 adult children, and I've gone around the racecourse again, and I've got 3 teenage boys. They are Generation Rent, and now they will be Generation Debt. So the ACT Party has been rejuvenated under David Seymour. Our emphasis, as mentioned, we are a conservative libertarian party, and we want better government, leaner government. But now with being a COVID-free island and a COVID world, we need a plan. And at the moment, there's no plan out there other than borrow, spend and hope. Borrow, spend and hope. There is nothing. ACT will bring a much higher degree of policy, public policy debate to the table, and we will definitely be at the table this election. This will be our best election ever. It will surpass 02 and 08, and I'm hoping that we can bring that blue gold vote through. It's imperative. We are. I've worked in bond markets and share markets all the way through. We are borrowing like never before, and we are monetising our debt. In other words, we're getting the Reserve Bank to purchase up to 60% of what's been issued. We don't have a plan. You know, you're digging a hole, a debt hole. The sides of that hole will remain slippery and deep for the next 15 years. How we want to transgress or have a plan to move out of that hole is where we can contribute. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. And now for you, Natasha. You get to tidy up everything, don't you, with your 3 minutes. Look forward to hearing from you.
Hi, is this on? Yes.
It is on.
Kia ora koutou. My name's Natasha Fairley, and I'm standing in front of you. I'm the Green Party candidate for the Northcote electorate. It's my first election and my first in-person candidate meeting. So thank you for coming. Feeling quite hot up here, but I just want to tell you a little bit about myself. I went to Northcote College along with my brother and sister. My grandmother grew up in Northcote Central and State Housing, which now has had the new builds on it, and then she lived in Birkenhead in State Housing, and my mother and her 6 siblings, my grandmother was Catholic, all grew up as well in State Housing with government support. And now my mother is an accountant, my other auntie is a doctor, my uncle lived at IRD. I'm not just trying to brag about family credentials, but I really truly believe that if people are helped and looked after at the start of their life, they can be very, very productive members of society, and that's really important. So that's a little bit about me. I'm now a family lawyer, and I volunteer with Forest and Bird, and I've also worked for the last 8 years with Oranga Tamariki, being a foster home caregiver, looking after foster children. Again, it's with my work, dealing with families. I also do legal aid, helping families in need, meeting children that have come from very hard circumstances and no fault of their own, and then seeing these young children grow up, often get into the criminal justice system, and then unfortunately we don't have those supports to help these people develop mental health issues, addiction issues, and I really think early intervention is a really important thing with our children. So social justice is a big thing for me, And also, with my forest and bird and just love of nature, I also really value the environment. And so when looking for a political party, I did some research and saw the Green Party really stood by policies that I can stand up here, be very nervous, but say I think they're great policies and they can help all of us live in a better society with a better environment. We are a smaller party. I'm asking you tonight to party vote Green, because without the Greens in government, we won't have a Green voice. And what is a Green voice? It's a voice that will represent things that don't have big money behind them. They'll represent things like having good water quality, caring about climate change, caring about those vulnerable in need in our society. The Greens do have a really great plan for this post-COVID, well, still going through COVID, hopefully say post-COVID, economic recovery, and it's investing in green jobs and public transport and infrastructure that's not going to just create debt and leave our future generations with debt and problems, but actually say, look, let's make productive choices that are going to create jobs and leave future generations with a better environment and for all of us to benefit as well. So I'd say please party vote Green, and yeah, thank you for your time.
For somebody that's spoken first time in a live candidate meeting, you did really well, Natasha. You also finished with 2 seconds to spare, so so that was awesome. Okay, so I don't quite know how to do this next part, but we're going to have some fun just the same. I've got some just really brief questions that require even briefer answers, and it's just our chance to have a bit of fun with you and get some feedback. So what I was thinking, just to make this easy, I'll start with you, Bill, with my first question, and then we'll just go that way, and then I'll go to you, Dan, for the second question, and we'll just go and finish on you, Bill. We'll just, that way, I'm not, unless one of you is really excited and you want to go out of order, and that's okay. You can go out of order as well. Right, okay. These are short questions, and it's quick fire. Now, yeah, exactly, thank you. Okay, what's your favourite eatery in Northcote and Birkenhead?
McDonald's.
Oh! Well, you've got a lot of fans out there, Bill. Dan, come on.
I'd have to say Mulan Restaurant, and my fiance and I love going there.
Oh, it's a great restaurant. Shannon.
Next to my office, Tongue and Groove.
Oh, yes.
I think it was Sausalito, now I go across the road to Engine Room.
Ah, and Natasha.
I really like Dutch Delight because I did a year in Groningen in university, and it reminds me of the food in my uni days.
Well, the good news is our family's invested a lot in all of those places, so dear me. Okay, starting with you, Dan. If you could choose one superpower, what would it be?
Superpower to read minds.
Be careful what you wish for, Shannon.
Superpower to fact check.
Ooh. I don't think you'd have time for that superpower in some countries. Tim?
What, superpower as in?
Yeah, superpower, yeah.
There's 2 superpowers. I think I'll stick with the MAGA.
Mine would be to fly, so no, emissions, because it's not electric planes.
You want Doctor Who's telephone box, don't you? And Bill?
Natasha just stole my thunder. I've always wanted to fly like a bird. I have these dreams where you jump off a cliff and stick your arms out and then you fly. And then I saw this wingsuit flying on TV and I couldn't believe it. It was right out of my dream. But I'm too chicken to try it.
Well, let us know when you try. Okay. Given we're not allowed to travel overseas, think of one place in New Zealand you haven't been but you'd love to go. We'll start off with you, Shannon. One place.
All right.
Yeah.
I'd probably go to the Marlborough. Yeah.
Awesome. Tim?
Good food in mine.
Ngāti Porou country, East Cape.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
I'd like to go to Stewart Island. I actually had booked in to do the Great Walk for March this year with my mum and auntie, and it got cancelled. So I'd really like to go to Stewart Island another day.
I think I'd go to the Chatham Islands because it's just so different, I think. I've never been there.
Same.
I like to climb up Mount Egmont because every time I go backwards and forth from Wellington, I see it, but I'd love to go there. It'd be a beautiful place.
Okay. starting with you, Tim. If you were to win $10 million in Lotto, what is the first thing that you would buy? You've got 10 million. What's the first thing you're going to buy or do with your money?
Well, I've got 6 kids and none of them have got a house, so I think I might put a decent deposit down on a house. Well, with 10 million, should be able to buy a decent house for all 6 of them.
Natasha.
I'd probably have to look into it, but I hate the idea of privatised beaches and no access to beaches around New Zealand, so I'd probably just try and buy a big bit of land and put it into a trust for the community to be able to always access.
Yeah, nice. Bill.
I'd start a news media platform. I'll call it True News, as opposed to the fake news that we're getting at the moment.
Well, I don't think there's any media tonight, so you're safe with that one. Dan.
So my fiance and I, we rent, so we'd probably look at buying a house in Birkenhead somewhere.
Good. And Shannon.
If I could do one thing for my family, it would be to build a papakainga where my mum and my dad and all of my nieces and nephews and extended family could live on one site down in Hawke's Bay where we're all from.
It's nice. Housing will be a theme tonight, I'm sure. Starting with you, Natasha, one living person you admire most?
Chloe Swarbrick. She's amazing, and she actually got me really interested in politics this year. And I did a politics degree at Auckland University and a law degree, and I wasn't that interested until really meeting and experiencing like a politician that really cares about the people and wants to make it, accessible politics for everyone. And so, I admire her a lot.
Bill.
Deep breath. Donald Trump.
Well, you'll be able to answer the next question pretty simply then, but without any heads up. Dan.
And this may sound cheesy, but my fiancée Courtney is just an amazing woman. She's just finishing her second master's, going to do a PhD soon. I'm very, very proud of her sitting right there. Thank you.
Nice answer. Shannon.
The most influential person in my life was my fourth form science teacher. And I despised science as a subject. I wasn't good at it, but I ended up having the highest attendance rate because of how engaging and supportive she was in my learning. She's the difference and the reason why I continued through to 7th form and came up to study here in Auckland. So
that's great. Tim.
I think I'll stick with the political agenda, and there's an old chap that still puts effort and policy into our little party, and that's Roger Douglas. And being an ex-Labor minister, he saw the light, and he took some huge risks in terms of turning New Zealand economy around and liberating the capital markets and the like from 1984 onwards.
Right. That's enough. We don't need. We're not. As much as I'm interested in Roger Douglas's history, right? You're only allowed to. So the next question is, as leader of your party, would you rather Donald Trump or Boris Johnson? You only have to say a name. We'll start with you, Bill.
To choose as the leader.
Yeah.
Either or. Oh, well, I've said Donald Trump.
Yeah, I know. I figured as much.
Boris, the lesser of two evils.
I don't say swear words, and there's no way I'm choosing any of them.
Tim.
Boris, he's got a sense of humour.
I'd say neither, but if I have to choose, I don't like politicians that deflect. Boris Johnson.
Yeah, that was an unfair question, but we throw it in. It was, only intended for fun. I don't know how those countries are coping. All right, on that note, I guess as we heard at the political debate the other night, democracy serves up some interesting characters, and I guess as political leaders, we have to work with whoever's been served up, don't we? That's the challenge. Right, so what we've got now is some specific questions that have been prepared. Each of the candidates have an opportunity. There's 90-second answers, and we're just going to work across the room. And then after we've done those, what we'll be doing is opening up to those questions that you've already submitted or some of you given tonight. So, there's 3 or 4 questions here, and I'll just go randomly on this one, otherwise we'll get into this sort of sequence pattern, and that's not the intention. So in this case, Shannon, I'll start with you. 90 seconds. What do you consider the key issues affecting the people of Northcote and Birkenhead, and if elected, what will you do to address it?
COVID-19 has transformed our lives this year, and top of mind for our community is jobs, jobs, jobs. What we've done as a part of the COVID response, 1.7 million jobs have been saved through the wage subsidy. That's a significant investment in front-footing the challenges of unemployment. We've still got more work to do. And so things for me, I've spent 15 years in leadership and management and tertiary education, and one of my priorities for Northcote electorate is that I don't think that we have enough training options locally. We have 2 universities, we don't have polytechs, we don't have trades training, and we don't have strong apprenticeship schemes. That's something that I want to bring here, both for young people, but also for those that need to retrain in the COVID environment. We've got to give people confidence that we're able to build employment, and that also is about building our local economy. Our retail centres, supporting the development of Pānuku down in the Northcote shopping centre is very, very important. We've got to accelerate that project to get it going and to support those small businesses. Similarly, hospitality, our good cafes and restaurants up in Highbury, we've got to back them, and that's going to require a revitalisation plan up in Highbury to ensure that we rebrand ourselves, position ourselves for the future, and grow that local economy. What that does for local people is creates jobs and enables us to work, earn and learn on the shore.
Good, well done. I'm going to mix it up. I reserve the right as the host to mix it up. Natasha, you're next.
Just following Shannon, I do believe the government's done a really good job so far with how it's handled COVID-19, and we're all lucky to be here today. And so I think so far it's been doing a good job. The Greens looking forward, as I said, is about investing in jobs that are actually going to help our environment and help our people moving forward, not unsustainable jobs. You know, we want solar panels on all state houses. We want 50% off for all of us to get solar panels, and this will create jobs and also help climate change. So I think really we're looking at ways we can help our economy, but at the same time tackle climate change, because we really can't do Little Shoal Bay. I just got an email just the other day from a local resident saying you can already see the impact of sea level rising. We just can't ignore it and say the only issue we have is COVID-19, because it's not, but we need to think and say how can we solve all these problems together, and I think the Greens are really looking at that. And another way they're doing that is with public transport. They've just done a big policy announcement for public transport, and that will obviously help a lot of people around Auckland, especially the North Shore residents that do travel into the city or around Auckland. It's shocking that we don't have better public transport. I can't believe the past governments haven't had the foresight to really invest in this, and that's also going to create a lot of jobs around New Zealand if we do invest in public transport infrastructure. And again, low emission transport. So it's just tackling these things all at once together rather than just doing piecemeal and thinking we can get out of the this crisis is the same as we did at the last recession, because we can all see that actually there's a big divide of rich and poor, and our environment has paid the cost of really short-sighted investments.
Sorry, Natasha.
Oh, sorry.
I gave you a little bit of slack because I forgot to put my timer on.
I was waiting for it. Yeah. Sorry. They're my thanks. Sorry.
So, I was just looking for that pause without being too rude. Bill.
So the question was, what do you see as the main issues
What is the
Birkenhead?
What is the one? What is the key issue in your mind for Birkenhead Northcote, and what are you going to do about it?
I think there's 4 main issues, and 2 of them are in other questions. One is COVID and one is transport. The other 2 main issues, as I said before, I think are crime and poverty, which, as I said before, by building strong families over the longer term, and I agree with Natasha on this as well, you know, we need to foster children that are from broken homes, and we need to encourage the traditional family and traditional family values, and make mum, dad and the kids the cornerstone of our society, so that children grow up in a really good environment with support right the way through into their late teens. The second biggest issue for me is more around how you are represented, you people of Northcote in our government. And I have to say that I got involved in this campaign because the primary issue for me is the Abortion Act 2020, where the government has liberalised abortion to the point where you can have an abortion right up to full term on the advice of two medical... Yes, you can. You need to go and read the...
Okay.
No, it's not. I'll bring you the legislation that says that on the advice of two health practitioners, a woman can have an abortion full term. And I don't understand why the government's pushed this through and then try to turn around and say that, oh, that's not what the law allows you to do, because it does. It's very plain in the Abortion Act. So I'm standing against that. And as I say, but the issue for Northcote in terms of that is the fact that 90% of the submissions to the Abortion Act were against the bill, and a survey showed that only 4% of the population wanted to liberalise abortion, yet our government's done it anyway. So we're going to bring in binding citizens-initiated referendums to turn around any laws like that.
Thank you, Bill. Dan.
All right, so I think in the short to medium term, as I said in my opening statement, the COVID era and how we deal with that is, I think, the greatest challenge. And then longer term, how we actually get ahead of that growth plan for schools, transport, infrastructure and the like. But let's talk about COVID. Firstly, we've got to do a better job managing the border. We just cannot keep going in and out of lockdown. The second thing, we've got to provide sufficient stimulus. That's why Nationals come out with our tax plan, right? And that will provide the average income earner with $3,000 a year for them to go and spend at our local restaurants and the Dutch Delights and the Mulans of the world. The third area is around actually stimulating private sector jobs, because guess what? Jobs aren't created in Wellington like this guy would have you say. They're created by private individuals going out there hiring an extra worker, and that's why we've said, look, we'll give a business 10 grand to hire a new staff member. We won't pile on costs such as another day's leave and extra sick leave and increasing the minimum wage like Labor will do. We will focus on creating private sector jobs. And the last thing around the COVID stuff is around investing in infrastructure. And I'm really proud, Judith's announcement around infrastructure is going to have a huge impact for our community. We need to get on and start a second harbour crossing. That is very, very clear. $300 million of investment into our ferry service. That is fantastic news to see. Northcote redevelopment, that's great. Let's continue that, and that was started under a national government. So we've got a really good plan. And I'm really excited about that this evening. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Hey, look, thank you, Dan. Okay, I just want to speak to the audience briefly because I can see we're starting to track sideways. I love the passion, okay? But what I am asking for tonight is you just hold it, okay? Because I respect the fact that we want to hear them, not hear your opinions, okay? So if we can just bottle it for tonight and then go out after we finish tonight and have the discussions and debate. But let's hear them, and we don't have to agree, but this is the power of democracy, isn't it? Yeah, we're going to try and do that, absolutely. But just on that note, I've asked them to be written because what I'm not after is audience speeches. I'm after brief questions so that we can hear you speak. Okay, so that's the only caveat on my answer to that question. Tim, your turn. What's the most important thing facing Birkenhead, Northcote, and what are you going to do about it?
What I could do about it would be great. First of all, when a politician tells you they're going to invest in jobs, be very careful. The private sector and individuals create jobs and take risks. Politicians are very poor risk managers. As my colleague Dan suggested, the middle part of New Zealand, we've got a very flat middle part, and Seymour put out a fiscal plan about 9 weeks ago where we would cut the tax rate in that middle band, which would give the majority of New Zealanders an income boost. Would look to put GST back to 10% for 12 months. It may that even could be worked differently as well, in terms of perhaps cutting it all together for businesses under 100,000 turnover. There's in terms of Birkenhead, it's obviously transport. I think if you look at what we've got, we're investing in 19th century technology in buses. I see a lot of buses driving all over the place with one or two people in them. Fortunately, I work Australian hours, so I can glide time. But when I do use public transport, I use the ferries. I think that's a scope where we can vastly improve in terms of getting it's just such a practical to take transport off the incumbent roads. That's my time, is it?
Okay, thank you, Tim. All right, next question. And I guess this is directly relevant to Northcote Baptist and many other churches on the North Shore, particularly this electorate. How can local churches and other not-for-profit organisations within this electorate work more effectively with government to support our communities? And we've heard about poverty, we've heard about housing, mental health, etc. But how can we, as faith-based organisations and churches and not-for-profits, work more effectively with government? So I might start off with you, Bill, on that one.
Well, the way the model works is, of course, that you choose one of these fine people to be your local MP and they represent your wishes with the government. That works fine as long as the government is listening to the local MPs and the local people. One example I gave was the abortion bill, which the UN is pushing through on us because they published a report in November 2019 that said that governments needed to promote more access to abortion and decriminalise abortion, and our government took that particular route. So in some ways the government is listening to the UN instead of listening to the local people through their MPs, and I believe that in fact New Conservative has a policy to decouple New Zealand from the UN and mean that you, the voters, determine our policies of our government, not some body that's a global body on the other side of the world. So we're very much against globalism and very much for local representation and bring the power back to the people, to the grassroots, rather than trying to be part of some, world thing. So I'm not particularly interested in whether our Prime Minister gets a Nobel Peace Prize. I'm more interested in the government representing you, the people.
Okay, thank you, Bill. Shannon.
This is one of my strengths, and I'm very experienced in the not-for-profit sector and the work that I've done locally. What's important to acknowledge in this conversation is that it's actually up to our churches and our NGO sector to tell us as local representative what their needs are and the type of resources that they require to do the good work that they do. Quite often what happens is it flips and previous governments have dictated to them what they should be doing. But what we've seen under this government is a change in leadership, and that's the style that I want to bring to our local community. That when we find ourselves in difficult situations, when we find ourselves in need, that we, I can't explain it other than hui hard. We bring people together. We talk about the issues, and as one group of people, we do the things and jobs that needs to be done. As a local MP, my job will be to support that. And an example of that is bringing together a group of all the groups that have been distributing food parcels over COVID-19 over the past few months. I brought them together last week and we talked about future-proofing a bit of a plan over the next couple of years and ensuring that we have the right resources, the right distribution in place and the right support to get the food to the places that it needs to be. Right? That's not a dictatorial model. It's about bringing people together and then doing the mahi to get things done.
Okay, thank you, Shannon. Natasha.
I think Shannon said it very well, and it is that just communication between your local MP, national government, and community-led organisations, because I think politics in New Zealand for so long, there has been a really disconnect there. We feel powerless, we feel helpless, we feel like there isn't the accountability between politicians and the people. And so I do hope that people vote for a candidate that they feel will represent their interests and listen to them, and then take that and say, how can the government actually help and make this easier? Is there regulations that need to change, and why are these problems even existing? You know, there's a charity exists, and it's amazing, but sometimes the systemic issues do require government assistance to help change. Otherwise, it's just been an ambulance at the bottom of the cliff. And I think the national government can help a lot with community organisations, and it is just that communication.
Well done. Tim?
I agree with the last two speakers. We need. You know, I sit at our dinner table, and now I didn't think. You know, you've got kids coming up, or your children. I hate that word, kids. Your children coming up, entering the workforce. You want them to go through and get the best education. You want them to be independent. You want them to be healthy and happy, and some kids just don't get that. And I like any New Zealander, it distresses me when I see bad outcomes, and you think, gee, if they just didn't make those some bad errors at the start, and where could they have gone to and got that better advice in churches, Salvation Army, other people, but it's friends, mentors, people who can reach out or see a problem. As a community, we've just got to, as you say, hui hard, and we've got to just bring people in and don't step over them.
Nice, thank you very much, Tim. Dan?
Oh, great to see really agreement on this issue, and it's I think organisations like your church, you do a fantastic job with the resources that you have, and we've got some great non-profit organisations in our community, and you guys know this community, quite frankly, better than any of us do. So I think two things. The first is an MP is a connector. So where you find maybe people that come in and they've got mental health issues or housing issues or other such issues, and I think the MP's role is to in fact link those people with local service providers like Hearts and Minds or DePaul House, and I do want to acknowledge Anne Littleton from my office who does exactly that in our community. But I think the second thing, exactly what Natasha said, you guys can tell us what you need in terms of legislative changes so that you can do a great job for our community. So I just think it's great to see kind of cross-party agreement here and have nothing more else to say.
All right, expect a few phone calls then. I think we just got an open invitation, didn't we? That was pretty awesome. I've got one more question that I'd like to ask now, and then we'll just go to some of those audience-based questions, and hopefully you'll recognise the wording. Sorry, I've just got myself lost. Here we are. Okay, there's been a bit of discussion on transport issues, and I'd like you to just dig a little bit deeper on that now. 90 seconds to tell us what it is that you will do to address the transport restrictions or issues in Northcote and Birkenhead. Okay, we'll start off with you, Dan, this time.
Great. So I campaigned last term around transport issues. It's still a very big issue for our community. So finally, after many years, Auckland Transport is prepared to trial a permanent clearway down Onewa Road. It was supposed to happen before lockdown, but it's going to happen very soon. So that's a good start, is trialling new solutions down our arterial routes. But that's not going to solve transport issues. We've also got to look at encouraging public transport. That's why National's promised $300 million for our ferries, which is great to make it lower the cost and increase the frequency. We've got to get started on that second harbour crossing. The last few weeks of gridlock in our community has highlighted that. So National has brought the date forward from late 2030s, which is what Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern has said, to late 2020s. And it's going to take a few years to plan, 3 years to plan, and then we'll get started in our second term. So I think those are the big three planks. Skypath, I'm very, very supportive. National will get it done, but $400 million, it's a hell of a lot of, apologies for saying that in this place. It's a lot of money, and we will find ways to cut that cost down. So, look, with a person like me, you're going to get someone who is always banging on, and Dean knows it, always banging on the door of Auckland Transport NZTA on these matters. Thank you.
You do know, Dan, that we occasionally mention the word hell here, so it's okay. I've got you covered, mate. That was awesome. Actually, we'll just go to you, Shannon, on that note. Transport issues. What is it that you will do to address the transport challenges for Northcote Beacon if you're
So in 2018, between Auckland Council and a Labour-led government, we've invested $29 billion in unlocking Auckland and addressing our transport infrastructure deficit because of the last 9 years and prior to that, but particularly the low investment of the last 9 years of the previous government. And that's, so we're playing catch up at the moment. What that includes, and we've already announced it in 2018, Jacinda Ardern brought the harbour crossing, second harbour crossing forward to 2028. That brought it forward by a decade. What we've done as part of that investment is investing in the business case to be done for the additional harbour crossing, because we know that we need to get the detail and everyone has an opinion on whether the harbour crossing should be under, over, cars or rails. What we do know in the information that we have at the moment is that it will prioritise rail and public transport, and it will likely be a tunnel underneath. That work has already started. We're not going to come into a new government and then start, and now's not the time to pull the handbrake up on the investment of transport. Richard Hills, our local councillor, said on Facebook recently, it's taken them years to get any investment under the previous government, with relationships with council, with relationships under this government. We will support Auckland and the work that needs to be done. Skypath is something that we'll do starting February next year. We've already funded it, it's in the plan. National has excluded it from their plan. Let's be clear about that. It's not in your budget. It's not in your budget. And the thing is, we've got to have a vision for transport. And as the local MP, I'll be committed to central government matters and being the local MP for central government, not walking over our councillors and local board. That's their job.
Okay, thanks, Shannon. Tim, what are you going to do?
Well, it's going to be around the future of work, and I think like COVID's changed things for the long term. I've been in Auckland since '86, and it always astounded me that the 1955 plan was to bring everything over the bridge and in through Spaghetti Junction. And we're continuing wanting to keep doing that. I think we need something a lot bolder. I think you need to reconnect. I've got clients who live in Whangarei, and if he wants to be in the Waikato, he might as well fly. You know, he can't drive there and drive back. We need a link that will take the motorway away from the Harbour Bridge and Spaghetti Junction and take it down the side of the Manukau and hook it up with the airport system and take it out through to Bombay Hills from there. Or if we're going to do another tunnel, the original plan was to bring it down. There was a plan to bring the motorway in from Tip Top Corner under over Point England and down the Coe Gully and then across. So that if you're going to build a tunnel, you might as well go big and have it from here and put it straight down and through and connect up. So you're not bringing everything in through the city. It's at chocker now. So. And we haven't got any more land. When I got to Auckland, they talked about Sir Dovemeyer Robinson, and things that should have been done back then were never done. Infrastructurally, we've been in deficit ever since.
It's nothing if not complex. I'll give you that much, Tim. Natasha.
Another one. It sounds like we're all in agreement that public transport really needs to be improved. As a Green Party supporter, I believe if the Green Party had been in earlier governments, like we've seen with this government, actually public transport has been invested in, and it's taken too long. How come these things haven't already happened? Why are we now looking, I believe the governments have been very short-sighted, previous governments, and they've just left it way too late, and now we're going to have to put up with this for a lot longer. Whereas I think the Greens really do think ahead. They think, let's build this infrastructure up, let's make it affordable for people so people use it. They have just announced a big public transport policy announcement. I'd really recommend you go and just Google Greens public transport policy so you can find out more for yourselves. But over 65s free, under 18s free, students free, community service holders 50% to really get people onto public transport. You know, it needs to be reliable and it needs to be cost effective, and the Greens see that, otherwise people won't use it. And then we support rail, obviously, from Auckland to Takapuna to Albany, and the Sky Path, and investing I don't know the exact figure, but a huge amount in cycle and walkways that are off main roads, so we can all get around safer and children can get to school safer as well.
Very good. You get to finish up, Bill?
I get to finish up. So NZTA, or Waka Kotahi, which is their new Maori name, have spent $100 million on the ATAP, which is the Auckland Transport Alignment Plan, and they came up with a ministerial briefing paper on a range of options for the new harbour crossing. From my reading of it, the most efficient spending of our money is to have just a pure rail tunnel, which would run from Takapuna to Britomart, and then put a toll on all cars that are using the harbour bridge. Now, I'd expect a toll to be offset by a reduction in our road user charges and our regional fuel tax, so it shouldn't hit you too hard in the pocket. But what that will do is drive people to use public transport and use a light rail, and part of that is extending the light rail from the tunnel right up around the North Shore and creating a light rail network, which is, if you look at all major cities around the world, you know, successful cities like London, which has the underground, or Singapore, which has the MRT, we get to a level of population density where we just have to get out of cars. So there is desire to have a road tunnel as well under the harbour, but I'm against that, and New Conservative would be against that, because that's just going to choke our roads with more cars. We have to get out of cars and get into public transport to save our city from just being gridlocked. With the Sky Path, the only thing I'd say there, it's $320 to $400 million. Let's put a toll on that, rather than dip into the pockets of every taxpayer to pay for it, because there's elderly people and disabled people won't be able to use it, and they've still got to pay for it. So we're all about user pays, New Conservative.
Important thing about the toll is that it blocks access for our most vulnerable communities to use.
Right, I don't want to give everybody the last right of reply, so you're off the hook this time. What we're going to do is, I did have another preset question, which I'm just going to hold at this stage. I'll let everybody know what the question was, but I want to get into some questions that the audience have asked, okay? So look, the question was, because there's no favour or lack of here, COVID-19, I would have asked, we can maybe come back if we've got more time. COVID-19 has left us with a major deficit and job loss. What will your party do to promote job growth and support recovery within Northcote and Birkenhead? So that was going to be the question. I think we've had little bits of flavour of it. So I'm just going to put it to one side for now. If we've got time, we'll come back. What I'd like to do, though, is get into some of the questions that you've been asking on the basis that this is what you want to hear. I'm going to start with, and you'll probably guess who asked the question, but I won't out that person. How will you work with the Kaipātiki local board for the betterment of our community? Yeah, that's right. I have to tell you which order you've got to answer in, don't I? Hey, Bill, we'll start with you. We're just going to work across the stage and we'll mix it up on the way through, starting in different positions. Right, Bill.
So when I first campaigned in Glenfield...
And you've got 60 seconds.
60
I forgot
seconds.
to tell you about that too.
I actually campaigned for the Greens because I believe in conservation, and I don't see why conservation has to be a left-wing thing. I mean, we all concerned about conservation, you know, and I think one of the main things that the Kaipātiki board is into, and which I'm really passionate about, is conservation and greening up the parks, and particularly it's a great shame that our walks over in Birkenhead, you know, are affected by carry dieback and we can't get in there. So even though you don't get this idea that right wing is big business and left wing is conservation, because you really need a thriving economy to even be able to afford conservation. So yeah, conservation.
Sounds nice. Dan?
I've got a great working relationship with the Kaipatiki local board. I think it's really important as a local MP to have somebody that actually just works across the political lines. So even though I'm the national MP, I work with people who don't vote national, but I still have very, very good working relationship. And I think that that's what this community deserves, is not a partisan person that's all national and nobody else. I do it to get along with and achieve things for the community. I did it on stuff like the environment, working on Little Shoal Bay and making sure we didn't have freedom campers at Little Shoal Bay. I did it with respect to making sure Kauri dieback was on the agenda for funding in the latest round of funding bids, which this government voted down, by the way. I've also done it on transport. It's a big issue for our community. The only way we can make efforts and progress as a community is by working together, and with an MP like me, you'll have somebody that works across party lines to make sure we get stuff done in our community. Thank you.
The important thing in the gap for our local board is that we don't currently have a representative as a part of government, right? And as the local MP, that's what I commit to. Having a strong voice that takes their voice back to ministers and back to the Prime Minister and back to caucus to talk about those things and advocate for our local needs. If I'm correct, I'm sure that local board member might have also campaigned on North Shore getting its fair share. And that's part of it. We've got an opposition MP, and that's fine, but we also need somebody that's a part of government. That's how representation and democracy works, and that's part of where we're missing out at the moment. I've got good relationships with the board. I didn't realise they voted our way. I don't know how they vote actually, but that's good to hear. The thing is, and particularly something that's special to me and what I hope to bring to the wider Kaipatiki team, which includes councillors, local board, and this fella here, is a unique Māori perspective and lens on our local community, that we start to bring things in like, acknowledging te reo around our place, and that would be my unique spot that I'd bring to the broader team.
Okay, thank you. Tim?
Well, as I'm not running for the electoral seat, from where, as a resident and ratepayer, if you look back, when I got to Auckland, we had 18 local boards, local councils. In 1990, early 1990s, it got cut down to, rationalised to 9, and then we had the super city, of which Rodney Hyde was given the Minister of Local Government at the time, and he duly resigned over the final put together of the super city in terms of what was not achieved by the then Mayor Brown, and obviously now up to 10 years of Labor control. We've lost transparency. We've got council-controlled organisations.
Tim, I just want to check in here, because the question is, how will you work with them? And you can still do that if ACT is in power. You can still work with the local board. How, if ACT is an influence on the next government, how would you work with the local board? You need to localise what the problems are, but I would want greater transparency and greater input into local issues. I think as a ratepayer, for one thing that really upset me was the pulling down from the T2 lanes from 10 a.m. to 9:30, from 9:30 to 10. To me, that's just ridiculous. And Natasha, so it's the same thing. You're looking for a party vote, but the question is, as Greens, how would you work with the local board?
The Greens would support local boards having power again for tree protection. I think tree protection is so necessary, and the North Shore's got some beautiful green spaces, and we should be supporting that. And I think that's a very passion of mine. I went along to the Canal Road tree protests the other week, and it's just shocking that local boards don't have that power anymore to protect trees, and it's on an individual basis, so it's really hard to protect trees.
Nice. Okay, this next question does relate to a number of things we've talked about tonight, and that's about education and career paths, particularly for young people. So the question for you, and I'll start with you, Dan, and we'll just move through, is how will you support access to tertiary education and career paths for our young people?
Well, I think my personal story, Dean, says it all. I dropped out of Howard College as a 15-year-old, bottom of my class. I did a butcher's apprenticeship at Woolworths supermarket. I then was mentored to go to university, studied 5 years, got 3 degrees from the University of Auckland, won a Fulbright scholarship to do a master's degree at Harvard University. So my story, I've seen both sides of the coin in New Zealand, and it is something I'm very, very passionate about, doing my master's in early childhood education. So I think we've got some really deep challenges in our sector, but some opportunities as well. The future of work is something I'm very passionate about, making sure our people are upskilled for the jobs of the future. High-paying jobs like in IT, we are not producing enough of those. And National's produced a fantastic policy that's been supported by the IT sector to help double the IT sector's growth in our country. That's something I'm really, really passionate about. But back to local issues, every school in this community is crying out for more classrooms. One school got $60 million, the rest don't. So National's agreed to fund the extra classrooms, about $160 million a year. That is fantastic news for every single school in our community, and that's what you'll get with me and with National as a government. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Shannon.
The reality for us is that 30% of our local school leavers are going into university education, right? But that leaves 70% of our local people that aren't. And I touched on the need for better tertiary options locally, polytechnics, and I've been talking to Unitec and MIT about the local needs, because the reality for institutions at the moment is the upfront costs of bricks and mortar to be located here is too expensive for the funding that they have in place. What Minister Hipkins has done is brought all of the polytechnics together. So we're more efficient in the resources that we have. And one of my hopes is that I'm able to advocate for one particular learning space for polytechnics, for wānanga, and for trades training to operate out of one space. And I think Northcote Central would be a good place for this. But where they're not hit with the high costs or high property costs in there. That's something that I'm committed to. We've got to have better options, and we've got to say to our kids that actually there's an opportunity for you to continue to work, earn and learn here in our local community.
Thank you, Shannon. Tim.
I've got a 19-year-old and a 16-and-a-half-year-old who are entering or have entered the workforce, and I find the political side where the education is centralised in Wellington, trades training. To me, having it all free. This word "free," nothing's free, and you need to have motivated kids who can enter. If they pass the first year, then pay a percentage, but then the third year might be 100% paid for. But let's have the incentive for people to get ahead. To me, from where I sit, the private sector doesn't have enough say in this centralised course. I think there's the trades training for one. I don't fully understand how all the mechanisms go together, but to me, there's not enough coming from the private sector of where we need people, how we need them, and in what places. We can produce a whole heap of kids who might be very averagely qualified, but are they going to get jobs? We need to turn it around and be a lot smarter. That's all I'm saying.
Natasha, education and training, what is it?
Sorry, can you repeat the question? Because I feel like after listening to everyone, I kind of blur what I've actually thought the question was originally. What's the question?
Fair enough. How will you support access to tertiary education and career paths for our young people?
I believe, and the Greens Party believes, that again, it starts out a lot earlier than trying to get into university, the age of being 17, 18. By that stage, a lot of children haven't got the education that they need to get into jobs. This can be obviously for a variety of reasons, but having no home, homelessness, a big issue in New Zealand, poverty, a big issue, overcrowded classrooms, underfunded schools, undervalued teachers. I think we can start a lot younger, and that Green Party really support the children and and wraparound services, including Māori and community initiatives to try and help families to really get kids able to even get to university. That's, I think, in New Zealand, we've got, unfortunately, by the stage of university, we've got people who are going to be very career-driven. They've done well at school and they're going to find jobs, but we're leaving too many kids behind, and that's creating a really big divide in our communities. And so, targeting earlier, support Labour's, a lot of Labour's initiatives too. Finish that.
Hey, well done. Thank you. And that leaves you, doesn't it, Bill?
Yeah, okay, so just agreeing with Natasha, we've got to get the education right for our younger children before they even get into tertiary. And New Conservative wants to put the power and back on the parents to control what sort of education their children have. And the way we'd do that is, first of all, we would end bulk funding, instead give the money to the parents so the money follows the child, and the parents can actually choose whichever school they put their children into. So kind of the free market model would then apply to education, and you would choose the best school in your area for your child, and that school would obviously receive more funding and then be able to attract better teachers. So it goes back to the parents rather than the government and political interest groups influencing the education of our children. Then when you get to tertiary, I think that interest-free loans, student loans, are a great thing, and I enjoyed one when I was at Massey University doing an MBA, and I thank the Helen Clark government for that. So I'd like to see something like that continue, but maybe there should be a low interest rate for the first few years, and then when you get to the final year, sure, that's interest-free, because you need some kind of a reward for going right the way through. If you give it to your first year, then you take the interest-free money and then you drop out.
Almost talked me back into education, Bill. Any case, well done. What I'm going to do now is we can have a 5-minute break. I know everybody's been working really hard, as of the panel. If everybody needs a bathroom break, they've got that. We'll just come talk amongst yourselves. We've got about 25 minutes of questions left, but I thought they've been doing really well so far, haven't they? They've been going flat tack for about an hour and 20. You can come up for air, relax. And then we're into the final round. How does that sound?
good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. Oh, and I've seen many searching for answers far and wide, but I know we're all searching for answers. Only you provide, 'cause you know just what we need before we say a word. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. Because you are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways to us. You are perfect in all of your ways. Oh, you're perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways to us. Oh, it's love so undeniable. I can hardly speak. Peace so unexplainable. I can hardly think as you call me. Deeper still as you call me. Deeper still as you call me. Deeper still into love. Love, love. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. You're good. You are perfect in all of your ways. It's who you are. It's who you are, and I'm loved. You are perfect in all of your ways. It's who I am. It's who I am.
I'm going to crunch this down. 4 questions by 5, 1 minute each. I'm going to include these two. I thought they were quite good. Yeah. I had that one. That was one of my 4. Okay. Thank you very much, everybody. I hope you've all had the chance to decompress. I know that the candidates were probably all grateful for it. We've got 4 questions left. I'm going to give you the 4 topics, and then we'll There's a question on climate change. There's a question on the cannabis referendum. There's a question on asylum seekers, and there's a question on what's the first thing you do when you're elected. So those are the 4 questions. That's the final round. We are going to have some fun, aren't we? There's 4 of you. There's 5 of you, 4 questions, 60 seconds each, and I'm just going to rotate it through. Actually, I might mix it up. That makes it more interesting for me, if not for you. What we will do is we are going to start with the climate change question. We're going to start with you, Natasha. I think that's only fair, isn't it? So grab that microphone. I'm giving you the chance to get ready. And I'm now turning my timer on. So the question is, what will you do to address climate change? 1 minute.
Firstly, the Green Party believes and knows that climate change is real. So some other parties might not accept that, or at least not act like that. In the Green Party, every policy we put out has climate change in mind. So yes, again, public transport, huge. Investing in green jobs. Another thing that they've done with confidence in supply with Labour this term, I think it was $1.3 billion. I'm not very good at the figures. In green jobs, clean energy, subsidising electric vehicles, what else? Helping farmers transition to better farming practices. The Green Party don't hate farmers, even though the media likes to try and point them against each other, but the farmers also need New Zealand to, have good grass and have a good product that looks good in the international market. And the Green Party want to support changing fertilisers and making farming and lots of stuff for climate change.
All right, Bill, you're next. What will you do to address climate change?
Okay, so first of all, in 2018, Greta Thunberg made a very impassioned speech at the UN conference on climate change, and that was widely reported in the news media. At the same conference, and you wouldn't know this, but 500 scientists and professionals presented a petition to the conference saying there is no climate emergency, but the news media chose to ignore that and focused on Greta Thunberg instead, a 16-year-old girl. So clearly there's an agenda going on here. Now, in 1976, my father and I built a seawall at Shelley Park where I grew up, and once a year the tide would come up over that wall and poison the grass. I went there last year and the grass still grows to the edge of that seawall, and you can go down to any beach you like and you can see that the sea level has not risen in the last, well for me, in the last, that was 46 years ago. So we don't see climate change as the emergency that's being pushed to us. We believe that's more of an agenda. So we would pull New Zealand out of the emissions trading scheme, which is costing us $1.4 billion every year, and put that money instead into finding better solutions to pollution. We can spend that money better than just paying it to the Kyoto Protocol on climate change. We have a whole raft of policies around dealing with climate change, and the debate needs to be really around the economic effects of it, because we're going to actually replace our agriculture with forestry. So the focus has gone from producing food for 40 million people to planting trees to suck carbon out of the atmosphere, and we're going to create world hunger, and that's not a debate or a conversation that's happening right now. So there's a whole lot more to climate change than just climate change.
Cool. Who am I going to go with? Tim, I'm going to put you up, and then I'm going to go Dan and Shannon. Tim.
All right, climate change. I work for OMF. We've just been taken out by Jardins. We're the single biggest broker in the ETS system. So I've been working with emitters and forestry in terms of talking about how the system works and how it's going to evolve. So our policy is to bring we're not bringing the private sector along the journey as much as I would like to see. We're not going to be able to transition from aspirated vehicles to electric cars overnight. We're going to go we need to go hybrid. We need to slowly transition and step our way forward into a sustainable economy, because that's what Brand New Zealand's about. That's what this whole new future of work is going to be about. So we need to be holding climate change as in the same conversation as a lot of other topics.
Very good, thanks Tim. Dan.
So climate change is something I'm really passionate about. I mentioned it in my first speech as one of the great challenges for New Zealand in the next 30 years, along with artificial intelligence and the shift from the economic shift from America to Asia. It's also something my beautiful fiance, is very passionate about, did her master's in climate change. She's a sustainability manager, and she wants to do a PhD in this topic as well. I stood up in the National Caucus and said why we should support the Zero Carbon Bill. I was very, very passionate and proud to do that. So for me, you'll get somebody who's very passionate about this topic. One thing we can do, I think, is to electrificate all of the government's fleet of vehicles. This government talked up a big game in this area, and only 1% of all government vehicles are now EVs. My fiance drives an EV, I don't mind them. I think we can make progress on this topic. So I think one thing we'll do is to make sure all of our government fleet is 100% electric. Thank you.
Very good. Shannon, what are you going to do about climate change?
I'm an absolute believer of kaitiakitanga, and that's the philosophy that I'd like to champion across our local electorate. One of the key things is that climate change and the work that we do starts right here. It starts within our homes. It starts across the kaupātiki. And so we've got to get better programs in place to support waste reduction, absolutely. We want swimmable rivers, that's our priority, and you've seen Labour commit to that. But what you'll see likely in the next government is a Labour-Greens relationship. And what that will do for us is it will enhance the commitment to the environment. It will put that up there and prioritise that. In addition to that, for us, and Natasha touched on it, is 11,000 new jobs will be created that support our environment. I talked about jobs, and our infrastructure also needs to be a part of that. So when we build back better. And then lastly is our SkyPath, that we create transport options that are efficient and affordable for our local community. That does include walking and cycling over the bridge. It does include our local ferry. Those are the things that we're going to get done, and we're already progressing that forward. Let's keep moving on that.
Very good. Some good answers there, wasn't there? Right, the next one is a really interesting question too. So I'll read it out as I've received it. Asylum seekers in New Zealand have to wait 2 years to get refugee status, then wait a year or two for residence, then again apply for their families to join them, a total of 5 or 6 years for families to be reunited. Do you have a plan to address this? So, good question. Who am I going to start with on that one? I might just start with you, Bill, and I'm going to work across the stage. No particular order. You're first up.
So asylum seekers, that's a very specific thing. We don't have a particular policy on just asylum seekers, but New Conservative has a policy whereby we would maintain net zero growth in immigration until our house prices come down, because at the moment we believe the the high house prices are due to the fact that our housing stock's been exposed to the international housing market. That doesn't really answer about asylum seekers, but I've just promoted a good New Conservative policy there.
That's called taking the question and using it to your advantage. I remember those. Dan, asylum seekers.
Hey, look, that's a really good question, and something that I don't know the specifics of the National Party policy on that. So whoever has asked, I'm happy to get back to you on that. But what I will say that's related to, I think, what the question was, is around the processing times for Immigration New Zealand. And what we've seen is, in the last few years, processing times for visas, residency applications have just skyrocketed. And we deal with a lot of these in our office. And I just think it's appalling where you apply for residency, you apply for a visa, and it takes a year for Immigration New Zealand to come back to you with very little communication. So National's policy around Immigration New Zealand is actually reducing the processing times for these visas and applications. And I think that that's something that I think a lot of people, not just asylum seekers, but a lot of people want to see, whether it's people that want to come here to work, live, because I think it's such a serious issue for our community. Thank you.
Just before going to you, Shannon, I thought I should just explain the context of the question. I checked in. A number of families and individuals in this church arrive here as asylum seekers. And so a number of us are aware of the challenges for them as individuals and the process they go through, and then to reunite with their families. So that's just a bit of the context. I understand